Honorable Alemayo Tegenu, Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Madam Rhoda Peace Tumisimi, Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture of the African Union Commission, Vice President Ali Abu Saber of the African Development Bank, Dr. Carlos Lopez, Under Secretary General of the United Nations Commission for Africa, His Excellency Mr. Festus, Her Excellency Mary Robinson, Honorable Saviour Kasuku-Weri, Minister of Environment, Water and Climate of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Honorable Mas Aksigai, Minister of Fisheries and Water Resources of the Gambia, His Excellency Ambassador Gary Quince, Head of the European Union Delegation, their partners and friends of Africa, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the third conference of the CleanDev Africa program, taking place here between 21st and 23rd of October in the beautiful and historic capital of Addis Ababa. The theme of this conference is Africa on the Rise. Can the opportunities from climate change spring the continent to transformative development? I'll probably just open a very small parenthesis here and say that whilst we were busy thinking about an appropriate title for this theme, we were partly inspired by Africa's meteoric rise and the talk about Africa's transformational agenda, but also partly due to this blog that our Executive Secretary has, which is called Africa Cheetah Run. And we're thinking of a suitable metaphor, and I think in terms of the pace of Africa's transformation, you can't get a better metaphor than a cheetah. So we thought perhaps Africa on the run might be a useful theme. But just to tell you about the value of partnership, we were talking to our colleagues from the African Union Commission and the African Development Bank. And many of them conveyed to us that the idea of Africa on the run might sound like a bit like somebody who's being a fugitive and running away from someone or running away from something. And therefore, this idea of being captured might not be quite appropriate. So we had to swiftly think about another theme that would be more appropriate, and we decided to stick with Africa on the Rise, which at least it's safer. Distinguished delegates, climate change has been described as the single biggest threat facing humanity. How do we define threat, and what does this mean for vulnerable groups in Africa? How do we understand the struggle that fishers in Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Gambia and Senegal face as climate change continues to pose multiple threats to fisheries? Their struggles include higher sea levels, more intense and more frequent storms that threaten port and fishing infrastructure and deny them valuable livelihoods. How do we increase the quality of decision-making for farmers and pastoralists in East Africa who have to make critical management decisions based on available climate data and are hampered by lack of access to climate science, to science-based forecast? And how can we help Egyptian farmers who are experiencing considerable hardship as salt is leaching into rich soils and invading drinking water wells? Much closer to home, here in Ethiopia, what fresh hopes can we bring to Ethiopian farmers when rising temperatures and increasing variable rainfall continue to have devastating impacts on agricultural productivity in a country where 85% of the population depend on agriculture for their livelihoods? And finally, how do we explain to the children of Sahelian farmers and livestock herders that a 25% decrease in rainfall in the past 30 years is part of the legacy that we will hand over to them. Ladies and gentlemen, in the midst of the debate on the conference of the parties held annually within the context of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the lives and livelihood of vulnerable people are often forgotten, as the discussion focuses on semantics, markets, rights, technologies, institutions, and who is entitled to what part of the atmospheric space. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all awakening to Africa's meteoric rise, and our institutions are working to ensure that we can continue to achieve sustainable economic growth that will ripple across critical sectors in Africa and provide opportunities for our people, our youth and women, who collectively remain the single largest untapped potential that the continent has. Africa is rising, but this growth will be short-lived if we do not manage the impacts of climate change. The opportunity for harnessing the vast natural resources that we dispose of will be squandered if benefits accruing from mineral and the extractive industries are not used to stimulate growth in agriculture and pave the way to industrialization using smart innovations and cleaner technologies. We will be closing the window of opportunity if the vast wealth of energy that we have is not used as a foundation to green our economies. We will be punching above our weight if the strength of the political will of our leaders is not commensurate with our investment in climate-resilient economies. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference is not about failure, nor is it about philosophizing on missed opportunities. It is about looking at climate change as an investment opportunity, and in that sense, it is a how conference, not a why conference. Distinguished guests, this is the time for Africa. We are poised on a hopeful pathway, a transformative development agenda. Climate change can increase the opportunity space for Africa to invest in renewable energy technologies, turn agriculture into a booming industry, build human and institutional capacities towards a knowledge economy that supports innovation, research and development, invest in climate services in ways that will leverage the potential of hydrometeorological services so that they can act as a credible resource, and use the collective voice of our 54 countries to make finance flow and ensure that our call for new additional funds are aligned to our national priorities, systems, and institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a countdown to Warsaw, where we will open discussions as part of the 19th Conference of the Parties, and here we will discuss climate change in all its forms. The space for Africa to resolve its problem is dwindling, and the pace of the negotiation is costing African farmers, pastoralists and fishers their opportunity for a reasonable chance of arriving at a sustainable livelihoods. The Climate Change and Development in Africa Conference gives us an opportunity to elongate the policy space and to share experiences through practical solutions. Climate change is part of our reality. It defies our boundaries. It presents new challenges that mock our current institutions. It robs our people of their single biggest entitlement, their right to manage their natural resource for the benefits and that of their family. It challenges our knowledge and our deeply entrenched assumptions. It stifles the entrepreneurship of our youth and vulnerable group, and it reduces our opportunity space. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa is indeed on the rise, and our rise against the negative impacts of climate change will be even more formidable if we can act now. if we act with resolve and vision of our leaders, civil society, vulnerable groups and friends and partners of Africa in saying that together we will. Our collective journey in finding solutions has already started, but as we travel together in the collective ecosystem, let's ponder the words of a famous writer who said, "One of the main points about traveling is to develop in us a feeling of solidarity, of that oneness without which no better world is possible." Thank you very much for your kind attention. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to now invite Mr. Carlos Lopez, Under Secretary General and Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa. Thank you.